And now, let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akugha as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, Mamode Akugha. Today on the program, we're going to focus on conflict resolution and development in the Niger Delta. And we kickstart with a report on calls for the constitution of a governing board to pilot the affairs of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. In our second report, we bring you an update on the demand for an upward review of 2.5% host communities development trust fund in the petroleum industry bill to 10%. Next in our lineup is a report on the prospects and challenges of legalizing operations of artisanal crude oil refiners in the Niger Delta. And finally, in today's package is a report on how the presidential amnesty program has fared in the Niger Delta. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, determined to make a difference.
Glad to have you back on the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. In recent weeks, the clamor for the immediate appointment of a governing board for the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, seems to have gained momentum. But how appropriate is this demand by some sections of the populace in the Niger Delta? While some Niger Deltans believe that the appointment of a governing board is mandatory at this time, others believe that the call is ill-timed and perhaps even mischievous, considering the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari had made it clear he would only appoint a board after the conclusion of the forensic audit exercise. In the following report will examine the NDDC under the interim leadership of Akugha, as well as the appropriateness or otherwise of the call for the immediate appointment of a governing board for the NDDC.
Rising from their recent meeting in Port Harcourt, state governors in the South-South geopolitical zone called on President Muhammadu Buhari to immediately constitute a board for the NDDC to enable it function better as an intervention agency.
A situation where for more than 1 year now, the NDDC is being run first by a caretaker committee, now an interim administrator. It does not augur well for our people. At
face value, it appears like an innocuous request to strengthen the NDDC, but the actual motive behind the governor's demand is simply to rock the boat. Needless to say, appointing a board comprising officials with vested interest at this time will compromise the integrity of the ongoing forensic audit of the NDDC. While calling for a board to pilot affairs of the NDDC, the South-South governors also took a swipe at interim administration appointed to supervise ongoing reforms in the commission as illegal. It would be recalled that President Buhari in October 2019 ordered a forensic audit of the NDDC at the instance of the Niger Delta governors and made it abundantly clear that the interim administration was in place to carry out an unbiased supervision of the audit process devoid of political manipulations. Mr. President's objective is to rid the NDDC of endemic corruption and maladministration and completely sanitize the system before handing it to a new board. Fortunately, the ongoing forensic audit of the Commission is about to be concluded, and with only few weeks left for a leadership change to take place in the NDDC, the governor's demand for a new board is considered ill-timed and out of place. To the satisfaction of stakeholders, Interim Administrator of NDDC, Mr. Akugha, has diligently supervised the ongoing forensic audit and has stabilized operations in the system. Upon his appointment on December 13, 2020, Mr. Akugha brought an end to a long-standing feud between the NDDC and the National Assembly and was able to break the jinx in the passage of the NDDC budget by the federal lawmakers. As the lawmakers admit, this feat was achieved by Mr. Akugha's administrative acumen and leadership skills.
The interim administration has been so nice in terms of reach out, communication, and discussions. We approved the 2020 budget for him. We, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we want to collaborate with you.
The interim administrator, I call you the jinx breaker, and I call you, you have performed what we call aqua magic, and I'm very delighted that this is coming at your time. In less than 3 months, you have brought stability, and you have brought this edifice to completion.
As soon as he was appointed interim administrator, Mr. Akugha began to confer with state governors and leaders of the Niger Delta to get their inputs into his development agenda for the region, and commenced payment for contracts awarded by the NDDC, and has successfully supervised the completion of the new permanent headquarters of the intervention agency in Port Harcourt.
I wish you all the best of luck. You are our son. We believe in your appointment. We have to support your appointment. You are a Niger Delta person. You are from the south. Akwa Ibom produced a lot of oil.
We are well aware of the circumstance that led to his appointment, and hence a child of circumstances, and should be supported by anyone that means well for the region. Mr. President appointed him to hold forth and conclude the forensic audit before the taking over of the new board. He is carrying everybody along as a people, and we are happy with the appointment.
During the short while he has held sway, Mr. Akugha has transformed NDDC operations and is confident about leaving the commission better than he met it few months ago. The South-South governors are therefore enjoined to give peace a chance in the Niger Delta and refrain from making further statements that would jeopardize the ongoing forensic audit of the NDDC and ignite tension in the region.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Members of oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta have thrown their weight behind the South-South caucus in the House of Representatives in its recent call for an upward review of 2.5% host communities development trust fund in the petroleum industry bill to 10%. The 2.5% proposed for the host communities in the development trust fund of the PIB, they insist, is grossly inadequate to effectively tackle grinding poverty and deprivation suffered by oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta. Correspondent Chika Bodozie completes the story.
The South-South caucus in the House of Representatives recently held a retreat in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital, to deliberate on issues of interest for oil-producing communities in the petroleum industry bill. In a communique issued at the end of their retreat, the federal lawmakers came up with 8 resolutions that should be considered in the PIB to offer oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta a new lease of life. 2 of such resolutions emphasized the need for an upward review of host communities development trust fund to 10% and relocation of headquarters of oil majors to the Niger Delta.
Funding of the host community development trust should be left at 10% of OPEX of preceding year of companies. Relocation of headquarters of all oil majors to their areas of operations.
Earlier, the South-South Governors Forum, during its meeting in Port Harcourt, also demanded that 10% host communities development trust fund should be proposed in the PIB.
Urge that the National Assembly should increase the provision in the host community fund from 2.5% to 10%.
In solidarity with the South-South governors and federal lawmakers, close observers of proceedings in the renewed attempt to pass the petroleum industry bill have maintained that the proposed legislation be used to address untold deprivation and administrative neglect that have been the lots of oil-producing communities for several decades. They insist that the PIB should be crafted in a manner that allows oil-producing communities to have equitable participation in the petroleum industry bill.
As an individual, I would say even the 10% they're asking for is not enough. I say it because if you go to the site where these oil operations go on, you shed tears.
The hue and cry about marginalization and deprivation have reverberated in the Niger Delta with a renewed attempt to pass the Petroleum Industry Bill, prompting most local and international observers to wonder why oil-producing communities are getting increasingly apprehensive about ongoing reforms in Nigeria's petroleum industry.
This is one bill that will bring in local content to focus in the oil and gas business. This bill will accelerate skills acquisition and skills development by Nigerians and people of the oil-producing communities.
The oil-producing communities would want their interests protected in the Petroleum Industry Bill to bring an end to structural imbalances that have contributed significantly to their underdevelopment in over 5 decades. With a new regime of justice, equity, and fair play in the allocation of Nigeria's oil resources generated in their domain, they are hopeful that the challenges of poverty, insecurity, and underdevelopment currently plaguing the Niger Delta would be consigned to the past in no distant time.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Introducing from the heart of Nigeria's Niger Delta region, a residential estate like no other, Victoria Creek Gardens Estate, VCG2 Airport Road, Port Harcourt, River State. A blend of aesthetics, functionality and simplicity built into 600 units of safe and comfortable accommodation. Located in an urban serene environment, VCG2 Estate is just 5 minutes away from the Port Harcourt International Airport. It features an already built police station, a shopping mall, hospital, hotel, cinema, club, gym, playground and many other facilities for your comfort. Purchase a home at our irresistible offer today for you and your family, or just simply invest in our real estate for a fantastic return on investments. For more information, call us on 070-410-01558 or visit our office at Plot 14 Woji Road, GRA Phase 2, Port Harcourt. Victoria Creek Gardens Estate, oasis in the garden.
Heritage Bank.
Service, performance, respect, integrity, innovation, tenacity, excellence. Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner.
Azikel Group. Oil and gas, dredging, power and air transportation. Azikel Group. Petroleum product sufficiency, energy sustainability and infrastructure development.
The federal government has been urged to walk the talk on legalizing operations of artisanal crude oil refiners in the Niger Delta to boost daily production of refined petroleum products in the country and check untold environmental pollution in Nigeria's oil-producing communities. The appeal follows government's reiteration of its commitment to harness the potentials of artisans operating local refineries in the Niger Delta at a summit organized last week in Abuja to explore ways of integrating local artisanal refining operations into the oil and gas sector of the Nigerian economy. Correspondent Lovely Ofigo has details.
Those young men and women who are involved in illegal refining, our approach to that is that we must engage them by establishing modular refineries so that they can participate in legal refining, not illegal refining. And we are committed to making sure that the young men and women of the Niger Delta are properly engaged.
That was Vice President Yemi Oshibajo expressing the federal government's intention to transform illegal refineries in the Niger Delta into modular refineries in February 2017. 4 years after, the Vice President re-echoed the government's plan while speaking virtually at a summit organized recently in Abuja to achieve a roadmap on integration of artisanal refiners into the mainstream of the oil and gas sector of the Nigerian economy.
The transition from artisanal refineries to modular refineries has been delayed because of the operator's expectation that this process will be fully underwritten by government. However, what this framework envisages is a private sector-led partnership with equity participation from the state governments or its agencies, registered local cooperative societies, and the integration of regional refinery stakeholders with a private investor having majority equity. This is the sustainable model.
Obviously, the federal government cannot justify its delayed action in incorporating artisanal refiners into the oil and gas sector, where they have made significant inputs in recent years. As participants at the recent summit and other Nigerian summits, artisanal crude oil refiners have over the years made spirited efforts to address energy deficiency in the country through their operations in the Niger Delta.
It is this crude oil that is being supplied all over the filling stations. Federal government is only telling us they are bringing fuel from here, they are bringing fuel from here, they are bringing fuel from here. All the fuel they are bringing is from the creek. They are the same thing that they are putting in the tank, bringing in the filling station, selling us. We have not seen any imported fuel in the Niger Delta. So long as the federal government does not have the political will to open the Mamode refinery, this fuel business will not going to stop.
Local refinery has grown swiftly over the past years, providing communities with employment opportunities and filling the supply gap of refined fuel in the Niger Delta and Nigeria at large.
Expectedly, the relegation of artisanal refiners has come at a huge cost for the country. In September 2020, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) reported that Nigeria spent a whopping 1.09 trillion naira to import petrol in the first 6 months of the year, noting that the country's fuel import bill rose by 42.3% in the period under review. As a result of huge bills spent on fuel importation, the price of petrol has risen astronomically in recent years, leaving the ordinary citizens at the receiving end of an ill-conceived economic policy.
Without refining your product inward, the cost of finished product will continue to rise. This illegal refiners, so to say, we should engage them.
Without government's recognition, artisanal crude oil refining remains illegal, yet the business continues to thrive and has provided jobs for the growing army of unemployed youths in the Niger Delta. Over time, operators of artisanal refineries have made significant improvements on the quality of refined products, yet their activities continue to impact negatively on the environment. Only recently, the Stakeholders Democracy Network, a non-governmental organization operating in the Niger Delta, raised concern over environmental threats of black soot ravaging the city of Port Harcourt and its environs, an occurrence which it blamed on activities of artisanal refiners operating in Rivers State.
We had an opportunity to do an overfly, over Port Harcourt. You could see the refineries have tripled. Looking around the creeks, the entire creeks that make up Rivers State, there are splinter spots of, burning of crude everywhere. The appearance of the soot has to do with, the artisanal refinery going on in the state. All over, everywhere is gone.
In spite of its negative consequences for the environment, artisanal refining remains a low-hanging fruit for the federal government in its bid to revamp Nigeria's ailing oil and gas sector. Moreover, incorporating local crude oil refiners into the petroleum industry offers a win-win deal for practitioners and Nigerian authorities. The government is expected, therefore, to embrace a paradigm shift from rhetoric to action in its avowed commitment to transform the petroleum industry with relevant input from artisanal crude oil refiners operating in the Niger Delta.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Stakeholders in the Niger Delta peace process have called on the federal government to revisit the presidential amnesty program that was designed to foster security and development in the region. The call is coming on the heels of a recent threat by the Supreme Egbesu liberation fighters to resume hostilities in the region, following the federal government's refusal to implement the presidential amnesty program to the letter, which was part of a 16-point demand made by leaders and elders of the Niger Delta region in their November 2016 meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari. Correspondent Ekene Amiofori tells us more.
The Supreme Egbesu Liberation Fighters, a militant group operating in the Niger Delta, recently threatened to resume hostilities over a number of vexing issues relating to underdevelopment of their region. One of the issues given the group cause for worry is the levity with which the federal government has implemented the presidential amnesty program.
Look at the outcome of the amnesty program for the agitators from the Niger Delta region. After accepting the amnesty pact and believing that the region will experience rapid development and transformation, till date, no school, no potable water, no lights, no hospital, and access roads for our people to enjoy.
In June 2009, late President Umaru Yar'Adua gave an unconditional pardon to armed militants bent on crippling Nigeria's economy through sustained attacks on oil and gas infrastructure in the Niger Delta. The presidential amnesty program was conceived to be implemented in 3 phases of disarmament, demobilization and reintegration of repentant militants into normal society. Under the peace deal, the federal government has the obligation to provide about 30,000 ex-militants who enlisted in the program requisite skills to earn a living, address infrastructure deficits and ecological problems faced by oil-producing communities in the region. As a result of the government's failure to implement the amnesty program to the letter, there was a new outburst of violence in the Niger Delta, prompting the region's leaders under the aegis of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum PANDEF to meet with President Buhari in November 2016. At the meeting, Mr. President had reassured Niger Deltans of his commitment to restore lasting peace, security and development in the region. 4 years after, not a few Niger Deltans have expressed concern over mounting insecurity in the region, which they blame on poor implementation of the presidential amnesty program.
I would consider the presidential amnesty program a failure. The federal government of Nigeria only targeted the ex-agitators because they felt that if they target them and reduce the violent conflict, they could go ahead and continue to produce oil seamlessly.
It's not just by giving people amnesty. Have you addressed the issue that gave rise to insecurity in the Niger Delta? If you have not done that, you continue giving an amnesty, and youth will say, okay, if we carry out arms, if we cause problem in the state, we'll be giving amnesty. So I don't think amnesty have achieved what it set out to achieve.
The presidential amnesty program was conceived through recommendations of the Ledumite report of 2008 and was to last a period of 5 years from 2010 to 2015. Owing to lack of proper exit strategy, terminal dates for the program has been extended several times.
Unfortunately, they picked only aspects of that recommendation and ran with it to just show that we have made some success. But in terms of what the whole DDR component was, it has not been implemented in terms with what we made the recommendations.
This is supposed to be a short-term program. But if you continue to expand, extend, elongate it, because it has become a patronage agency.
The lackluster implementation of the presidential amnesty program is attributable to endemic corruption in the system. In October last year, National Security Advisor to President Buhari, Babagana Mungono, revealed that over 712 billion naira released to fund the program since its inception in 2009 could not be accounted for. It will be recalled that immediate past coordinator of the program, Professor Charles Dokubo, and his predecessor in office, retired Major General Paul Boru, were fired on allegations of corruption. The current coordinator of the program, retired Colonel Milan Dikio, is said to be in place to clean the mess in the system. However, sources close to the presidential amnesty program are not convinced that radical reforms will happen in the system anytime soon. They want the federal government to revisit the program which has failed to achieve its aims and objectives in the Niger Delta.
If we can go back to the drawing board, where we could draw a new objectives that targets the youth directly, and then begin to work according to the objectives, I think the program will begin to record another set of successes.
The call on the federal government to reconsider the presidential amnesty program is to avert a likely resurgence of violence in the Niger Delta, which would worsen the current parlous state of security across the country. It is also with a view to protecting the nation's economic assets domiciled in the region from further attacks by disgruntled elements.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Well, that's the much we can take on the program for today. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region, will be back same time, same station next week. Until then, you can follow us on our social media handles showing right now on your screen. Until next week, I am Mamode Akugha, thanking you for staying with us. Bye for now.